Hello, everybody. I think we are live. This is exciting. Really excited to be talking to all of you guys. I'm going to give it about another minute or so, a couple of maybe another 30 seconds for everybody else that wants to join the live stream. And then I suppose we're going to get into it. But yeah, this is really cool. Welcome to another Earth Live lesson. My name is Patrick Aryee, and today I'm going to be talking about big animals, real life giants of the animal kingdom. Now, before I continue, I just want to say a massive thank you to Lizzie Daly for organizing all of this and for inviting me to join you all here today. So hopefully we'll be able to share a couple of cool facts and have some fun along the way. So who am I and what do I do? Well, my name is Patrick Aryee. As I already said, I am a wildlife TV presenter. I've worked in documentaries, wildlife documentaries for about 10 years now. I've made documentaries for the BBC, for Sky, Nat Geo, BBC America, PBS, all sorts. And yeah, I've been doing it for about 10 years now, and it's taken me right across the world. I feel super, super lucky to be able to do what I do. Today, it's the result of lots of passion and dedication. And yeah, I feel really lucky that I'm able to literally live out my wildest dreams. And it's even better because I know that a lot of you come on the journeys with me, and I love sharing my stories and my adventures. One in particular stands out, which was about 2 years ago. It was the biggest wildlife adventure of my life to date. And what we're doing, we were searching for the biggest animals, the biggest beasts to take to the skies, to swim the oceans, and to walk the land. It's a journey that took me right across the globe, from the Americas over to Asia, and eventually to the beautiful Mother Africa. And that is where we're going to start today's live lesson. I'm just going to make sure that we're all streaming okay. If you are watching, please remember that you can ask me any questions that you'd like. As I'm going through, we're going to be talking about some of these experiences. So please do ask questions, and I'll see if I can keep an eye on that and tell you, and try my best at least to answer those questions. So here we go. Let's Mother Africa. To help you set the scene, I'd like you all to close your eyes and imagine you are on a Martian landscape. You're surrounded by, as far as the eye can see, by red, rusty sand, and the sky is stained orange as the sun begins to set. We are in one of the driest locations in Africa. In fact, it's so dry that sometimes not a single drop of rain falls from the sky for an entire year. So really, really arid, really dry. We are in the Namib Desert. Now, deserts for me are one of my favorite landscapes. I remember the first time I went to a desert, I wasn't necessarily, it was to the Namib Desert, but on another trip, we were looking for golden moles, and I'd never been to a desert before, didn't know what to expect, but I just thought, well, it's dry, it's lifeless, it's desolate. Why would I want to go to a desert? But after that first trip, anytime that I've got a desert listed on one of my travel trips, one of my filming trips, sorry, I'm really excited. And that's because the landscape is so beautiful. The wind carves the sand into different shapes, and the sand has different colors. Some are darker orange, some are really dark red. I think that deserts are, despite the fact that they're really harsh, there is beauty and there is life if you know where to look. But I've got to admit, this is not the place that I would expect to find a big animal, because it is really dry and it's really harsh. But it turns out that the Namib Desert is a perfect spot for the tallest animal to walk on land. I'm of course talking about giraffes, specifically a small population of Angolan giraffes that we discovered had made the Namib Desert their refuge. So let's start with what we do know about giraffes. They stand at a staggering 6 meters tall and weigh in at over a ton. one of, if not the standout feature for me when it comes to giraffes, and actually probably everybody, what they're most famous for, other than their overall height, is the length of their necks. Their necks are about 3 meters long, which is, when you think about that, so you've got this giraffe which is about 6 meters tall, and its neck is 3 meters long. So it's got a neck that's pretty much half the size of its body. So imagine having a neck that's with the same proportions as a giraffe. My head would be here, it would be somewhere up there, and I'd have to like bend it round, and it would make life as a human super, super awkward. Added to that, the necks themselves weigh about 100 kilograms, 100 kilograms just for the neck. So you would think, or you'd imagine, that having a neck like that would pose a bit of a disadvantage to the giraffes. But this is in fact how they're able to survive. Their necks are their lifelines. It not only does it help them to find food, it allows them to access water in the middle of a desert. Well, how are they getting this? Obviously not reaching up to the clouds. When we think about the Namib Desert, it looks lifeless. But when you look at it from the sky, what you can see are what appear to be these kind of network of capillaries and arteries. And these are dry riverbeds that kind of meander through the landscape. And dotted along these dry riverbeds are trees. And these trees are fed by water deep underground. That's where they're drawing all of that water from underwater aquifers deep underground. And these trees, acacia trees, are using that water to grow the main body of the tree, but they're also using that to help drive the growth of their leaves. Now, these leaves are packed full of nutrients, but they're also full of water, and that is what the giraffes are after. So not only are they able to access nutrients from the leaves with those long necks, but by eating several tons of these leaves every week, they're able to get all the water they need just from those leaves. And that's why the Namib Desert, turns out, is one of the last strongholds for the tallest animal on the planet. I'm just going to check if we got any questions. Remember, hello Ben, how you doing? If you have any questions, Ben, please fire them through. I'd love to try and answer some of your questions today. How long have we got? We've got another 13 minutes. I'll see if I can whiz through. So yeah, giraffes are, when we think about giraffes on the rest of the African continent, they're being impacted by human activity. We as humans are driving them out of their territory, or in fact, we're making their territory smaller by carving up the land into smaller and smaller patches and sections. But the truth of the matter is that giraffes, big animals like giraffes, need large spaces. They need large spaces to roam. And again, when we're thinking about how they're accessing water in these deserts, there are few trees, so they need to be able to access as many trees as possible. They also need space to interact with one another. They have different territories and to breed. So one of the things I think is really cool about giraffes, other than their necks, is what sits right on top. They've got these 2 horn-like spurs. I mean, they look like horns to me. They're horn-like, bony, horn-like projections, or whatever you want to call them. I call them horns. And they use them in the most spectacular ways. So the females tend to group up in small harems, and the males want access to the females so that they can mate and pass on their genetic material down to the next generation. And the males have to face off, and they do this through a process known as necking. And it defies all belief. The first time I saw this, I just couldn't believe it. They swing their necks back and forward. It's like something out of Gladiators, but for giraffes. And they're using those horns, those short antlers, to try and deliver a decisive blow to their opponent, to hopefully knock them down to the ground, defeat their opponent, and then they have access, then they win, and they have access to these females. So Giraffes are incredible creatures. I think for me, they're like one of the last marvels of the natural world. When you see them, they look not like dinosaurs, but they just look like they belong. They like they've come from another planet. So yeah, that was an amazing experience seeing giraffes in the middle of a desert, somewhere where you would not expect to find them. What else? Well, giraffes aren't the only otherworldly looking giants to walk the earth. Our next adventure, one of my next, our next adventure, one of my other stories, takes us to the primeval setting of the islands of Southeast Asia. Now, one of the cool things about islands is that over the course of a long period of time, and when we say a long period of time, we're talking about thousands, if not millions of years, they have a profound effect on the size of the inhabitants of the islands. Something about the island turns creatures into giants. Now, it's not a mysterious mythical power. It's a process known as island gigantism. It's a biological phenomenon where we see the size of an animal that's isolated on an island dramatically increase in size when you compare it to its mainland relatives. You have the other thing, it does happen the other way around, where you have insular dwarfism. So some animals actually decrease in size. And that you can see that in pygmy elephants when I think it comes down to the fact that when you have limited resources, it makes sense if you're already a big animal to actually get smaller. In the case of this creature, it got bigger because there were no predators to keep that size in check. Now, an island of giants sounds like something from the movies, and this next big beast I'm going to talk about actually served as inspiration for the original 1933 movie King Kong, after American explorer William Douglas Burden returned to the States with 2 live specimens of the largest lizard in the world. I'm talking about the Komodo dragon. Now, the Komodo dragon lives in Southeast Asia on 4 islands: Rinca, Flores, Gili Montang, and the island of Komodo, of course. Now, they're a type of monitor lizard. They're related to monitor lizards. The only thing is, these guys are just way bigger, 5 times bigger than their relatives. And they are super cool lizards. I mean, to see a lizard, when you think of a lizard, you think of a small, tiny thing that climbs on walls. These guys are not going to be climbing any walls. They are massive, massive things. Their bodies are covered in scales, really tough scales that kind of act like chainmail, which they need because when these Komodos come together, they really battle it out. And I know that it was the inspiration for King Kong, but I like to think that it was also the inspiration for Godzilla in some ways. You know, when males come together, they are so big and they're able to use their powerful tails to almost stand upright and fight each other almost standing up. It kind of defies belief, but really cool. An animal that Komodo dragons have been on my bucket list for quite a while. I'd seen them on Attenborough shows. I'd seen Steve Backshaw tracking them down, and I have to admit, I have to apologize to you, Steve. I always thought that you were playing up to the cameras, but you were not. And I understand why you and your crew were so skittish. And that's because these lizards are ambush predators. So out in the open, when I first saw them, they were out on the beach. They pose very little threat because you can see where they are. And if they start running to you, you've got somewhere else to go. But that all changes once you get into the interior of the island and it it's covered in dense vegetation, and that's when the Komodo dragons really come into their own as ambush predators. So they preserve their energy, they lie in wait, waiting for their prey, a deer, wild boar, to walk past. And once they're within striking range of their prey, they unleash a burst of speed and deliver a deadly bite to the leg. Now, despite the fact that their mouths are lined with 60 so sharp, really sharp serrated teeth. It's not the jaws or the teeth that are deadly. The deadly a part of the Komodo dragon comes down to its spit. So the Komodo dragon's saliva is full of venom. It contains a toxin that prevents the blood from clotting. It's an anticoagulant. So normally when you have a wound, the blood, there are factors in your blood that start the clotting process, and then that allows your body to heal. In this case, if you've just been bitten by a Komodo dragon, that process stops completely, and so that stops the healing process and eventually leads to muscle paralysis. And it's that, along with their size, that gives them this brilliant hunting strategy. The bigger the Komodo dragon, the bigger the prey it can take down. But they obviously don't start out that size when they're first born. I think they're born in how many? I think it's about 30 to 40 centimeters long when they're born. At this point, they are still vulnerable to predations. So they're not as bold as they are once they get bigger. In fact, they're vulnerable to predation from other Komodo dragons. Komodo dragons are cannibalistic, so they eat their own kind, which isn't too pleasant. So when they're much smaller, they have the ability to climb trees to try and keep themselves safe. But once they get bigger, then it's not necessarily that they lose this ability, they just get too big to climb trees. So Komodo dragons live up to about 30 years old, but it's once they get to about 50 kilograms in weight, in size, that it becomes game time. And that's when they can hunt the biggest prey on those islands, water buffalo. Unfortunately for the water buffalo, let's picture this for a moment. You know, how is this Komodo dragon, this lizard, coming after these buffalo? Well, like I explained, they lie in wait, they ambush this buffalo, a deadly bite to the leg. The venom starts to take hold, but the process can last up to 2 weeks. It can take 2 weeks for a buffalo to finally succumb to that bite, succumb to its wounds, and at that point, the Komodo dragon can then feast. You might be thinking, well, how does the Komodo dragon find its prey? Because, well, 2 weeks, that water buffalo would have walked miles and miles and miles away. Well, remember, they're on an island, so there's only a limited distance that prey can travel. Also, the Komodo dragon uses its keen sense of smell, that forked tongue, to be able to detect the carcass that its prey, which is now expired. It can detect prey up to 4 kilometers away. So perfect to be able to find its prey once it's reached its end. The cool thing about Komodo dragons is that they can eat up to 80% of their body weight in a single sitting. They eat everything: flesh, skin, bones. Like I've seen a Komodo dragon take a whole leg down with the hoof as well, down the hatch. So yeah, amazing creatures. And they're able to get this big because they are isolated on islands. When we think about let's just have a quick check on time. Oh, we're gonna have to race through. When we think about Komodo dragons and their relatives, I think it was Megalania prisca. This was one of the largest lizards to ever walk on the planet, about 7 meters in length. Its head was about 2.5 times the size of the Komodo dragon. Massive thing. It's thought that they used to live in Australia, and it looks like their demise coincided about 50,000 years ago, coincided with the arrival of early man in Australia. So that's where it reminds us of the power that we have as humans. We can either be the villains or we can be the superheroes. But yeah, that was an amazing experience to see those Komodo dragons up close and in person. I'm going to get to your questions really quick. I'm going to tell you about one last adventure. I know, gosh, time flies by so quickly. So yeah, one of my biggest wildlife adventures that I absolutely love and was in the Caribbean. So halfway across the world from Southeast Asia, on the island of Dominica, we were looking for the biggest predator on the planet. And to find the creature, we had to listen out for it. We'd gone out 2 to 3 miles out to sea, and we were using a hydrophone, an underwater microphone, to detect the sound of this predator. We were listening out for these strange clicks known as coders. These coders are specific to certain populations of this particular animal. And that's how we triangulated them. We eventually found the right spot, and I heard Andrew, who was our guide at the time, he shouted out, "Whale at the surface!" We were looking for sperm whales, the biggest toothed predator on the planet. They have the largest brain of any animal, and they are just spectacular, magnificent. I remember getting into the water and putting my head underneath, and it just looked like I was looking at this a submarine. It's just everything in my brain said, "Do not swim to this thing." And then I hear the crew say, "Patrick, swim to the whale." And I'm thinking, no. But yeah, wow, to be that close to an animal of that size, that magnitude, they can grow up to 25 meters, weigh about over 20 tons. That's 20,000 kilograms. I remember swimming next to it and thinking, wow, this is, mind blowing. It was a really good demonstration of understanding that they are sentient beings, their intelligence. I was swimming next to this sperm whale, and all of a sudden I just couldn't keep up. It was just swimming faster and faster. And so I had to slow down. And it was at that point that the whale also slowed down to match my speed. And it's a story that I tell time and time again, but I never get bored of, because it really genuinely made me feel that we have a connection with animals of the world, that whale was not a thing. It was a living, sentient being. And, it gives me goosebumps to this day, just thinking about that experience. We're already at 22 minutes. Oh my God, I can't believe it. I've got so much more information to tell you. Let's have a quick look through. What is my favorite big animal? I have a soft spot for whales, all types of whales, blue whales, right whales, sperm whales, orca, killer whales, probably my favorite. And your favorite animal that's become gigantic? You know what? I think that they're not as big as some of the animals I've already mentioned already, but I think that ostriches are really cool. Biggest bird on the planet. Just amazing seeing them run on the open savanna. I think they're quite cool. Have you had any bad experiences with Komodo dragons? Asked Tomo Hawks. I have not, because I made sure that I did not. As soon as you get off the beach, you got to switch on. You do not want to end up like a water buffalo. Holly Robson says sperm whale ? Yes, sperm whales. I love them. They're amazing. Yes, so I wish I could spend more time talking to you about these animals, but I think we're going to have to wrap up. But yeah, that's just a little insight into some of my adventures, my biggest wildlife adventures. If you want to keep in touch with me, my information is down below. But before we leave, I need to tell you about the next Earth Live lesson. You're going to be joined in about an hour and a half by adventurer and science communicator Mallory Lindsay. She is talking about turning a fear of the animal kingdom into a downright fascination. So make sure you tune in and have your questions at the ready. Until then, it's been an absolute pleasure. Make sure you connect with me. The links are below to my YouTube page, Patrick Goes Wild, my Instagram, my Twitter, my Facebook. Let's get connected. Until then, I will see you next time. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Take care.